أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 79, Surah Al-Anam. قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِلِقَاءِ اللَّهِ. Those will have lost who deny the meeting with Allah. خَسِرَ. What does خَسِرَ mean? That they have suffered damage, they have incurred loss. And which loss is this? Absolute loss. قَدْ خَسِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِلِقَاءِ اللَّهِ. And what is the meeting with Allah? The Day of Judgment, the resurrection, the hisab. حَتَّى until إِذَا جَاءَتُمُ السَّاعَةُ, until the hour will come to them. What does it mean by حَتَّى? Meaning they will deny and they disbelieve until the hour comes to them unexpectedly. They continue to do takdeeb. They continue to live in a life of denial, a life of rejection, until all of a sudden the sa'ah comes to them unexpectedly, baghtatan. What is the sa'ah? Sa'ah refers to the Day of Judgment, the Qiyamah. However, remember that there is sa'ah sughra and there is a sa'ah that is kubra. What is sa'ah to sughra? Death. Because man mata faqad qamat qiyamatahu. The person who dies and his qiyamah has been established. Because his life is over. He's finished now. And a sa'ah refers to also sa'atul kubra, meaning the Day of Judgment. Over here, however, it refers to what? حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَتُمُ السَّاعَةُ بَغْتَةً. Death. So, they continue to deny, they continue to live a life of denial until all of a sudden, death comes to them. بَغْتَةً. Baghta is from the root letters ba, ghain, ta. And it is when something comes unexpectedly, unannounced, surprisingly. That without any warning, while a person is busy in his usual routine, he's going about with his usual daily tasks, one thing after the other, and all of a sudden, he sees the angel of death before him. Without any warning. He wasn't even thinking about it. He wasn't even mentally ready for it. He had no idea. He never imagined. He never thought. One is that a person realizes that yes, one day I'm going to die. And a person believes that I could die at any moment. And because of that, he's living a life of consciousness. That he's living his life in an organized way. Every night that he goes to sleep, he makes sure that he's performed his fara'id, he has not neglected anything, that he has forgiven the people whom he was upset with. Even though the angel of death will not come, okay, I'm coming in an hour. Yes, even that is unexpected. However, it is more unexpected for the one who was not even thinking about death, who was not even preparing for death. If a person is preparing for death, yes, death will come, surprisingly, but it won't be as big of a surprise for him, because he was preparing for it. And when he will see the angel of death, what will he be told? What do we learn in Surah Al-Fajr? Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. So even if the angel did come without warning, it won't be terrible. However, a person who was not even mentally ready, not even mentally prepared, he doesn't even think about his death. For him, the sa'ah is baghta. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَتْهُمُ السَّاعَةُ بَغْتَةً قَالُوا, they will say, يَا حَسْرَتَنَا, O woe to us. حَسْرَتَنَا, O our sorrow. How sad. O grief of ours. يَا حَسْرَتَنَا. What does ya mean? Ya means O, and it's generally used to call someone. It's harf nida. But remember that sometimes it is also used for exclamation. It's not literally that they're calling hasra, but it is to show the increase in the hasra. Ya hasratana, O our hasra. Meaning how great, how terrible is our hasra. And what is hasra? It is to express extreme regret with sorrow over losing something from one's hand. So ya hasratana, ala ma farratna. How sad, how sorrowful we are, how regretful we are, ala ma farratna fiha, over that which we neglected concerning it. Farratna from the root letters farata. And furut is to deliberately rush ahead. What does furut mean? To deliberately rush ahead. And farrata, tafriq, is to be negligent. To be negligent. So basically, ifrat is to exceed the bounds, and tafriq is to be negligent concerning the bounds. You understand? It's extremes. Ifrat is to overdo something, and tafriq is to underdo. It is to be neglectful, to be negligent. So, يَا حَسْرَتَنَا عَلَى مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِيهَا, over that which we were neglectful concerning it. Concerning what? Concerning the akhirah. That we did not prepare for the akhirah. We did not do what we were supposed to do. We neglected preparing for our Jannah, for our akhirah. How? By wasting our time in unnecessary things. Wasting our time in unnecessary things. A week goes by and we don't know where that week went, and there's nothing that is worth mentioning. يَا حَسْرَتَنَا عَلَى مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِيهَا وَهُمْ يَحْمِلُونَ أَوْزَارَهُم, and they will carry their burdens. Awzar is a plural of wizr. And what is a wizr? A burden. Which burden? That a person carries on himself. It's not that a person has put it in a bag and he's dragging that bag. No, he is carrying it on himself. وَهُمْ يَحْمِلُونَ أَوْزَارَهُمْ, they will be carrying their burdens عَلَى ظُهُورِهِمْ, upon their backs. Which burdens are these? The burdens of sins. The recompense for their sin. Like for example, a person who has stolen from the public treasury, whatever that he has stolen, he will be carrying that object on his back on the Day of Judgment. Whatever it is. وَهُمْ يَحْمِلُونَ أَوْزَارَهُمْ عَلَى ظُهُورِهِمْ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَزِرُونَ. Unquestionably, evil is that which they're carrying. What do we learn from this ayah? First of all, we learn about the importance of preparing for death. That a person should be, yes, he should be mentally prepared, but at the same time he should be actively preparing for death. Ask yourself every day, what if I die today? Am I ready to die? Yes, no one is ready to die. However, can I say that if I die now, I'm content with what I've done so far? I think I could get by in the hereafter with what I've done so far. Maybe Allah would be pleased with me. Is it really something that we have ready that we can show in the akhirah? Or is it that I'm still waiting for some miracle to happen so that I will change and I will get everything done? We learn about the importance of being prepared for death. And being prepared for death does not just mean that a person should be worried about his actions, about what he has prepared for the akhirah, but also about what he's leaving behind. That whatever I have, is there any amanah that belongs to somebody else that I have to return? And if I have it, and if I need it for some time, and if I cannot return it today because I need it tomorrow, then have I mentioned it clearly? Have I put it out clearly so that if I have to leave all of a sudden, people behind me know that this doesn't belong to me and they give it to the rightful owner? Or are my things all messed up that even I cannot tell between what is mine and what is somebody else's? We have to be prepared for the akhirah. We have to be prepared for death. And we must think about death regularly because we don't know when we're going to die. We don't know. It could be any moment. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait for next year. Don't wait for next week. Don't wait for the weekend. Don't wait for the night. Do it now. Don't leave it for later. Do it now. And if you don't do it now, you will never be able to do it. You will never be able to do it. Because we learn that people in the hereafter, they will say, if only we could be sent back. What does Allah say? They're lying. Because if they were sent back, they're not going to change their ways. Somebody just went for Hajj recently and they were telling us that they realized that things that they want to start in their life, they have to start doing them now. They can't wait for later. Because, for instance, we think that, okay, when I'm done with this, then I will start reciting the Quran every single day. Then I will start saying my Sunnah regularly. All of us think like that. When I am done with this, then I will start praying Tahajjud. But life is going to continue. It's going to keep going. And we realize that people who are not used to doing ibadah here, when they go for Hajj, they don't know what to do. They think it's a waste of time. They find it so difficult to stay there because they're not used to doing ibadah. And you may have noticed that things that you were doing regularly, you may have been able to continue with them in this past week of the break. But things that you were not doing regularly, you didn't even find time to do them. So whatever that is important to you, do it now. Don't leave it for later. Because you don't know when death is going to come. You don't want it to come baghtatan all of a sudden by surprise and you're not even ready for it.
I was just thinking that since it's New Year, people usually make New Year's resolutions and they remember what they did in the past. They said, oh, we couldn't lose this much weight or we didn't have this habit. And this year, this is going to be our New Year's habit. And I was thinking that, on the Day of Judgment, people will say things like, Ya laytana, Ya hasratana, that, woe to us of what we did in the past. And on that day, they won't have any way of going back. But now we do have, if we look even at the past week, right? I observed 2 groups yesterday and I asked, did you do your lesson? One whole week. And the responses that I got, majority of the responses that I got was, no, we didn't. 1 week, you couldn't take out half an hour to do your lesson 7 times? So imagine if your last week was like this, what about the last year? What have we done then? So we need to really change our actions and start these habits now and continue them regularly. Because if we get a week off, yes, you are allowed to have a break. You are allowed to relax a bit. But then you also have some sort of duties. And you have to continue them as well.
Exactly. And we all wish to be Hamilul Quran, Sahibul Quran, be of the people of the Quran on the Day of Judgment. But if we spend a week away from the Quran, not even reciting it one day, then how can we expect such an end? How can we expect the Quran to be our companion in the grave? Because right now we're reading it only because we have to. It's our homework, that's it. But when we're free, when we're not obligated, then we leave it. What does that show? That it's not actually companionship with the Quran. It's just something else. It's not Quran. And if it's really Quran, then no matter where you are, what situation, what time of life, you will be with the Quran. When the break started, you must have thought, oh, there's a whole week. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And you didn't even realize, and all of a sudden, it's Sunday night. And you realize the whole week is over. And this is how death will come. That we think we have a long time. We have so much time. I can do this, I can do that. When I'm done with this course, then I will start doing this. And you don't even realize, and life is over. Life is too short to delay and defer important things. Whatever is important to you, do it now. Don't leave it till tomorrow. We also learn from this ayah that on the Day of Judgment, people will carry the burden of their sins. You see, a mother, she also bears the burden of her child in her womb. But this is a good burden, and she carries it happily. But on the Day of Judgment, people will be carrying a burden that is worse, that is evil, that is heavy. That is going to be very difficult for them to bear. It's going to be a cause of embarrassment for them, a cause of humiliation for them. As-Suddi said that upon entering the grave, every unjust person will meet a man with an ugly face, dark skin, awful odor, wearing dirty clothes. So basically someone who is extremely dirty, who will enter his grave with him. When the unjust person sees him, he will say, how ugly is your face? And he will reply, so was your work. It was very ugly. The unjust person will say, how foul is the odor coming from you? He will reply, such was the case with your work. It stunk. The unjust person will say, how dirty are your clothes? And he will reply, and your work too was dirty. The unjust person will ask, who are you? He will reply, I am your deeds. So he will remain with the unjust person in his grave. And when he is resurrected on the day of resurrection, his companion will say to him, in the life of the world, I used to carry you because you followed desire and lust. Today, you carry me. So he will ride on the unjust person's back and lead him until he enters the fire. anything and everything that we do, any action, it is stuck to us. And in this dunya even, we are recognized by our actions. When you think of a person, what do you think about them? The actions that they do, the way they speak, the things they do, the way they behave. We are known by our actions. On the day of judgment as well, people will be known by their actions. How? That they will be carrying their sins. أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَزِرُونَ. Evil it is which they carry. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. And the life of this world is nothing إِلَّا لَعِبٌ, except amusement. وَلَهْوٌ, and diversion, play. It's just play and amusement. وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. But the home of the hereafter, it is best for those who fear Allah. So will you not reason? Will you not get it? That this life of dunya, it's only a la'ib, it's only lahu. And the real home is that of the akhirah, and it is khair. For who? For those people who have taqwa. Then don't you get it? How come you're spending more time for your dunya than for your akhirah? How come you're more concerned about your dunya than your akhirah? Al-hayat ad-dunya. Again, al-hayat ad-dunya. Dunya is that which is lesser compared to the akhirah. The reality of this life is nothing except la'ib. What is la'ib? A game, a sport, a play. And generally when you play, you're physically involved in that game, in that sport. For example, people are playing soccer or basketball or something like that. They're physically involved. So la'ib refers to physically being engaged in something. Physical involvement in something. And in this dunya, we are physically engaged, physically involved. One action leads to the other. One activity leads to the other. If you look at it from the beginning to the end of the day, you start with one thing, you go to the next, to the next, to the next, and the whole day is over. Just like a game. What happens in a game? People are focused on the ball, it goes from here, then it goes there, and within a few hours the game is over, finished. Similarly, the whole day, this whole life is moving from one activity to the next, until eventually the life is over. La'ib, physical involvement. And it's also lahwan, amusement. What is lahu? Distraction. Meaning something that distracts a person from that which is more important. Why? Because it is something that a person finds amusing, he finds pleasure in. So, la'ib is physical, and lahu is when a person's heart is engaged in something. When a person's heart is occupied with something. So this dunya is nothing except physical activity, physical engagement, and it's also just lahu. Meaning something that you find pleasure in, something that you enjoy for some time, something that you amuse yourself with for some time, and then it's over. Like for example, a person is sitting in a gathering, he's talking, and after some hours, the gathering is over, finished. He enjoyed himself, he found a lot of pleasure, but after some time it's over. Similarly, the life of this dunya, a person lives for some time, he becomes happy, he becomes distracted by it, but after some time, it's over. It's finished. وَلَهْوٌ. It's la'ib and it's lahu. It's also called la'ib and lahu. Why? Because the dunya, this life of the world, it is very short. It's very short. And it finishes very quickly. Just like a game. When it starts, you think that it's the most important thing in this life. Especially for those people who are involved in playing the game. They can't think about their house. They can't think about their children. All that they're concerned about is the ball. La'ib wa lahu. And within 2 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, it's finished. It's over. Similarly, this dunya, a person lives in it. This life, a person lives through it. And he thinks it's the most important thing to him. But within a few years, it's finished. It's over. So in its length, it's like a la'ib and lahu. You go to a gathering, you talk, you have some fun, you go have a party. After some hours, you go back home. It's over. You play a game on your phone. After a few minutes, it's over. Similarly, this life, you play in it for some time, and after some time, it's over. It's finished. Very short. It's not that long. Very, very short. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ. And surely the home of the hereafter, it is khayrun. How is it khayr? In quantity as well as quality. In quantity as well as quality. It is better for who? Those people who have taqwa. Meaning a person who lives in this dunya with taqwa, saving himself from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden, saving himself from what will lead him to the hellfire, saving himself from that which could harm him, for him the akhirah is better, provided that he has lived a life of taqwa. Remember when Umar radiallahu anhu asked Ka'b radiallahu anhu about taqwa, and he said that, have you ever passed through a passage or like an alley between shrubs and thorny trees and thorny plants? And he said, yes. He said, how do you walk through it? He said, I collect my clothes together, I gather them together, and then I pass very carefully. And he said, this is what taqwa is. That there is la'ib and there is lahab everywhere in this dunya. But what does a person do? He puts himself within limits. He saves himself, and very carefully, very cautiously, he goes through life. He goes through life. And for a person who has lived his life like that, for him, akhirah is much better. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you get it? Don't you understand? Don't you use your mind? That there are so many people who have passed on before you. They had huge houses. They played a lot. They made a lot of money. But they all died. You also, right now, you're living in this dunya, but very soon your death is also going to come. Don't you get it? This life is not everything. It's going to be over. Focus on that which is everything. Focus on that which is eternal. What do we learn from this ayah? First of all, we learn about the reality of this life. The reality of this life. That it is temporary. It's just la'ib bil jawarih, meaning you are physically engaged, and lahb bil qulub, meaning your heart is also engaged, meaning you find enjoyment and pleasure through this life. But that is the only reality of this life. It's temporary. It's going to finish very soon. And isn't it amazing? Sometimes you go play something. For example, as children, you may have played a lot of games, you may have played a lot of sports. Do you remember each and every one of them? No. Maybe you remember that you played a game once upon a time. But you don't remember every moment of it. Why? Because it's not that important. Maybe you remember just that moment where you scored a goal. That's all you remember. But the rest of it, you don't remember. This is what life is. That we spend our lives thinking that every single moment is so important that I can't even take time out to do dhikr. I can't even take time out to pray my sunnah. Because this is so important, this is so urgent. But after a week, when you think, is there anything that is worth mentioning that you did in the past week? Nothing. Nothing worth mentioning, nothing worth remembering. For the dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it is la'ib and lahu. When you go to play a game, do you stay there? No, you come back home. When you were having some fun, are you always in that state of having that fun? No, it's over very soon. But for the akhirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةِ. Home of the hereafter. Because home is where you stay. Home is where you live. Home is where you find peace in, where you find happiness in. Dunya is not home. What is the actual home? Akhirah. So the home of the hereafter, that is best for those people who have taqwa. Remember that statement in which it is said that dunya is like the prison of who? The believer. Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. And it's the jannah of the kafir. So when a person is in a prison, does he think that that prison is his home? Does he begin decorating his prison cell? No. He doesn't care in the least about it. What is he concerned about? My actual house, my real house. That is where he wants to go. Which is why he doesn't attach himself to that prison that he is in. Similarly, while living in the dunya, we should not attach ourselves to this dunya. Our attachment should be to what? To the home of the hereafter. The home of the hereafter. وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Recitation?
Right. One thing that I learned was that sometimes we think that, I have so many sins already, so I might as well just do another one. But if we think about it on a bigger scale, like suppose you're backbiting about someone, right? And you think that, on the Day of Judgment, I'm going to carry that, like just anything. And then if you think about it that way, it helps you realize better.
Yes. Because people think that, what's the big deal? I have so many anyway. Might as well get some more. But on the Day of Judgment, when a person is carrying the wizr, then every gram is even extremely difficult to carry. You know how if you're traveling and you've taken a lot of luggage with you, and you have a lot of hand luggage as well with you, and if you have to carry all of that with you, and by chance if your flight gets delayed or it gets cancelled and you're stuck in the airport and you have to drag that trolley, although you're dragging it, it's so difficult. And you just wish to just leave it there. I remember when we went for Hajj, something happened with our flight, so we were stuck at the airport the whole night. And we happened to have a trolley bag with us, and each one of us just wanted to throw it away, literally, because it was so burdensome. So burdensome. So if we can't even bear the load of this dunya, in the hereafter, on the day of Hashr, when it will not be a nice carry bag, but rather it's going to be wizard, that it's going to be in the ugliest form, it's going to be a source of punishment and humiliation for a person, how can a person carry that? So if we see the reality of sins before us, then we will stay away from them.
Assalamu alaikum. This verse that says that life is just like a game, it really hit me because I'm a computer games addict. So I feel that I know that when I'm playing game, I'm so into it, and when you're lost in dunya, you're so into it, and you don't know when it's going to end. For example, when the game finishes, or sometimes it doesn't even finish, the Xbox dies on you, and then you feel, I tried so hard for nothing. And now I'm realizing that, in this dunya, what you run after, and then it's going to end one day, and then you don't want to say that, I tried hard for nothing. You want to be able to say, this was worth it.
Assalamu alaikum. Recently when we came here, my grandfather was really sick, and he passed away. So when he passed away, you're expecting someone, old age, yes, that's true, but it doesn't really hit you until what happened. It hit me when a friend of mine back in Edmonton, she passed away, and she was 14 years old. And it was in the same time frame. And I'm like, death isn't biased. Like, it just happens to you whenever. So
it could come baghta, especially for a person who's not mentally ready for it.
That also reminded me of a story. Like, just recently, I had a friend. He had died just 2 weeks ago, and I remember seeing him in the summertime. And then all of a sudden, you just hear he's gone, he's dead. And he was 23, 24. And then there was another brother that was at my school who was 16 years old, and he had actually drowned. And then there's just so much other stories of young people going, and it's we let our young age, we just let ourselves be reckless. And then we don't realize that death could come at whatever time, whatever age, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. We learned at the beginning of the surah, ثُمَّ قَضَى أَجَلًا. He has fixed the ajal, and you're supposed to die at that time.
I was just thinking about yesterday's lesson, actually, when we were talking about the people who used to mock the punishment and then the perished nations. And I remember when we were doing the lesson yesterday, I was thinking about the people of Pompeii and how the Mount Vesuvius erupted, and they knew about it from beforehand, but they hadn't prepared anything, and they hadn't evacuated the city or anything, and they were destroyed because of that. And you can still look at them and how they're completely preserved in their exact state that they were in when the volcano erupted, and you can see that they haven't done anything. They're going on with their regular day-to-day lives. And I was thinking about that with these verses and how we know that the Day of Judgment is coming, we know that our death is coming, but we haven't prepared anything at all. And how is that different than what they did? And when we look at the people of Pompeii, like a lot of times when you watch documentaries, people are like, how could they be so stupid? Why were they doing that? Why were they just living? They knew them. They could see the mountains, the volcanoes are erupting. They can see it in the distance, and yet they're just going with their day-to-day life. And we know for sure that our death is coming, and yet we're not doing anything.
And we see people dying. We hear of people dying, but still we don't change our behavior.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to say that the last ayat says ad-darul akhirah, so it's like your home. It's you're choosing what you want your home to be. If you want your home to be the hellfire, then that's your choice. If you want the home to be Jannah, then you've got to work for it. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said that Jannah has a lot of hardships around it, and the hellfire has so many desires. It's just up to you to choose. You can control your desires. You have that ability to control it. It's just you want to control it, or are you going to let your desires take over?
Recitation.